Have you ever looked back at everything you've been through and wondered why certain people seemed so determined to see you fail? Why they invested so much energy trying to discourage you, isolate you, misunderstand you, or push you out of the way? The truth is, many of them misjudged you from the very beginning. They saw your kindness and mistook it for weakness. They saw your patience and thought you lacked strength. They saw your quiet nature and assumed you had no power. They saw you walking alone and concluded that nobody was standing beside you. But they were wrong, very wrong. They looked at your outward circumstances and made a decision about your future. They believed you would be very easy to defeat, discourage, and manipulate. They thought it would be very easy to erase you. They thought if enough pressure was applied, you would eventually collapse. And if people turned against you, you would give up. They thought if enough obstacles appeared in your path, you would stop pursuing your purpose. What they never understood was that although you appeared alone, you were never truly alone. God was with you the entire time. While they were focused on what they could see, heaven was working behind the scenes. While they were calculating your downfall, God was preparing your breakthrough. While they were planning against you, God was protecting you. The greatest mistake they made was assuming they were only dealing with you. They never realized they were dealing with someone God had his hand upon. And that changes everything. There was something about you that made them uncomfortable. Not because you stood in their way, but because of the light you carried. Some people are disturbed by a light they cannot understand. You showed kindness when others chose cruelty. You showed grace when others chose bitterness. You continued moving forward when others expected you to quit. And instead of being inspired by your growth, they became threatened by it. The brighter your light became, the darker their jealousy grew. The more you evolved, the more uncomfortable they became. The more you healed, the more frustrated they became. The more blessed you became, the more determined they became to stop you. But there is something important you need to remember. Light always reveals what darkness once hidden. And when someone is battling their own insecurity, your progress can feel like a mirror, reflecting everything they refuse to confront. You were never their enemy. You were simply becoming who God created you to be. And that was enough to trigger them. There were seasons when you felt isolated. Seasons when support seemed scarce. Seasons when it felt like nobody understood what you were facing. But heaven never abandoned you. God never left your side. His protection surrounded you even when you could not see it. Psalm 34 verse 7 says, The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Think about that for a moment. While you were worried, while you were praying and trying to make sense of everything, God's protection was already surrounding you. The people who thought they could completely destroy your future never realized that heaven was standing guard. There were battles you never saw, dangers you never knew about, plans against you that never succeeded. Not because of luck or coincidence, but because God's hand was upon your life. What looked like survival was actually divine protection. What looked like delay was preparation. What looked like isolation was God drawing you closer to Him. While they were focused on you, you remained focused on your purpose. While they spent their energy watching your life, you were building your future. While they became consumed by resentment, you continued investing in your growth. They lost valuable time worrying about what you were doing. You spent that same time becoming better. They were distracted by you. You were directed by God. And that difference changed everything. You kept learning, healing. You kept moving, even when people misunderstood you and talked about you. Even when people doubted you and abandoned you. You kept moving forward. Every challenge became a lesson. Every setback became preparation. Every disappointment became wisdom. The very things designed to stop your progress ended up accelerating your growth. You found God in a deeper way than ever before. What looked like a season of loss was actually a season of transformation. The struggle became a spiritual awakening. Isaiah chapter 41 verse 10 says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." That verse became reality in your life. God strengthened you when you felt weak. He carried you when you felt exhausted. He comforted you when you felt abandoned. And because of that, you emerged stronger than before. Not bitter, broken or defeated, but transformed. They expected your story to end differently. They expected failure, collapse, defeat, but God had other plans. Romans chapter 8 verse 28 reminds us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Notice what that verse says. All things, not some things. Today, many of the people who underestimated you are facing a difficult reality. The reality that you did not quit. You did not collapse or disappear. You kept growing and building. You kept trusting God and kept becoming. Everything they expected to happen never happened. You are still standing. In fact, you are standing taller than ever. And now they see the truth. The energy they spent fighting you was wasted. The money they spent on stalkers they hired to follow you around was wasted. Money they could have invested in something reasonable. The bitterness they carried produced nothing. The resentment they nurtured against you cost them precious years. While they were focused on your downfall, they neglected their own growth. While they were trying to stop your progress, they stopped progressing themselves. Time passed. Opportunities passed. Dreams remained unfulfilled. Not because of you, but because they became distracted by a battle they never needed to fight. You were never standing in their way. You were simply walking your God-given path. Never underestimate what God can do with a person who refuses to quit. People may judge your current situation. They may misunderstand your story. They may assume your struggles define your future. But God sees what they cannot see. The people who thought they could stop you now understand something they should have known from the beginning. You cannot stop what God has chosen to bless. You cannot destroy what God has decided to protect. You cannot defeat someone who keeps getting back up through faith. Today you stand as living proof. Proof that kindness is not weakness. Proof that isolation is not the end. Proof that setbacks are not permanent. Proof that God is faithful. And while some may look back with regret over the time and energy they wasted fighting a battle they could never win, you can look forward with gratitude, because God took every obstacle and turned it into strength. Keep believing and trusting God, because the same God who carried you through every storm is still leading you towards your next victory. And your greatest days are still ahead. Thank you for watching, and may God bless you.